Good morning, everyone. We are from Group 4, consists of Ramadhani Sri, Lukluk Trisnawati, and Laura Isma Dewanti. Will present our presentation about cooperation and implicature. For today's agenda, we are going to explain three subtopics. The first one is cooperation and implicature, which consists of the cooperative principle and hedges. The second one is conversational implicature, which consists of generalized conversational implicatures and scalar implicatures. And the third one is particularized conversational implicatures, which consists of properties of conversational implicatures and conventional implicatures. The first topic is cooperation. Cooperation is the situation in which people having a conversation are not normally assumed to be trying to confuse, trick, or without relevant information from one another. Basically, cooperation is the basic successful conversation. When people talk, they try to converse smoothly and successfully. The next is tautologies. Tautologies is when the speaker's or writer's intention to communicate more than is being said. There are some expressions of tautologies that conveys meaning which is called implicature. The implicature itself can be considered as an additional conveyed meaning according to Yule 1996. It is obtained when a speaker intends to communicate more than just what the words mean. Look at the examples. The first one is a sandwich is a sandwich. The second one is boys will be boys. And the third one is business is business. Those expressions can be conveyed as two meanings. The first one is speaker has natural opinion about sandwich. And the second is speaker believes that all sandwich are the same. The next is the cooperative principle. According to Grace, 1975, the cooperative principle is the idea that people cooperate with each other in conversing. To avoid this ambiguity, the cooperative principle can be split into four maxims. The first maxim is the maxim of quantity, which say, make your contribution as informative as is required for the current purposes of the exchange, and do not make your contribution more informative than is required. And the second maxim is the maxim of quality, or try to make your contribution one that is true, which say, do not say what you believe to be false, do not say that for which you lack adequate evidence, and speaker's intention to make utterance honest and truthful. The third maxim is the maxim of relation, or be relevant. And the fourth maxim is the maxim of manner, or be perspicuous, which say avoid obscurity of expression, avoid ambiguity, be brief or avoid unnecessary proximity, and be orderly. Look at the example for each maxim. The example for the first maxim is the conversation between A and B. A. Where do we have English class today? B. In the Brahma room. The person B contribute only as much information as required. The B person could give more information, but he only gave the information required. The example for the second maxim is the conversation between A and B. A. Do you know where Jack's house is? B. Yes, it is here. This required that the information provided in conversation to be genuine and justified. The example of the maxim of relation is the conversation between A and B. A. Do you like listen music? B. Only jazz. The B person contribute what is relevant for the purpose of the conversation. And the example of the maxim of manner is the conversation between A and B. A. What did Alice do when he arrived in Japan? B. She called her mother and then took a taxi. Being orderly is important in conversation in order to convey the message clearly. Next, we have hedges. It is an indicator which can be used in order to show that the speaker is trying to follow but cannot promise to fulfill the maxims criteria. Or in the other way, it is an accepted way of speaking which we all accept as standard behavior. When we produce or hear an utterance, we assume that it will generally be true, have the right amount of information, be relevant, and will be couched in understandable terms. These expressions are called hedges, and examples are following the maxims. First, Hedges' maxim of quantity. We have, as you probably know, so to cut a long story short, and I won't bore you with all the details. The second one is Hedges' maxim of quality. We have, as far as I know, I may be mistaken, I'm not sure if this is right, and I guess. The third one is Hedges' maxim of relation. We have, oh, by the way, well, anyway, I don't know if this is important. This may sound like a dumb question, and not to change the subject, but and the last one we have Hedges' maxim of manner. We have this may be a bit confused. I'm not sure if this makes sense, and I don't know if this is clear at all.
We customarily obey and assume our interlocutors are obeying the rules of conversation or maxim. In a conversation, there are a standard implicature and a flouting implicature. A standard implicature is when a speaker trying to obey the rules of conversation, while a flouting implicature is when a speaker flagrantly violating a rule. Conversational implicature are the assumptions suggested by a speaker and inferred by the hearer in an exchange situation. These assumptions are not encoded in the words said but are generated by the interlocutor's cooperation to achieve rational communication. Now, let's take a look at the example. In this example, Dexter appeared to be violating the requirements of the quantity maxim because he didn't mention the cheese. If he had brought the cheese, he would say so, because he would be adhering to the quantity maxim. He must intend that Charlene infer that what is not mentioned was not brought. In this case, Dexter has conveyed more than he said via a conversational implicature. We can represent the structure of what was said as bread as B and cheese as C, using the symbol for an implicature. We can also represent the additional conveyed meaning. It is important to note that it is the speakers who communicate meaning via implicatures, and it is listeners who recognize those communicated meaning via inference. Those inferences selected are those which will preserve the assumption of cooperation. When no special knowledge is required in the context to calculate the additional conveyed meaning, it is called a generalized conversational implicature. Now, let's take a look at the example. Dobby, did you invite Bella and Kachi? Mary, I invited Bella. In this case, no special background knowledge of the context of utterance is required in order to make the necessary inferences. As we know that Dobby asked Mary whether or not she invited Bella and Kachi. Then, Mary answered that she invited Bella. It can be concluded that Mary didn't invite Kachi. She only invited Bella. The general process of identifying implicature is the same as in number 2, although the context is different. Another example is using indefinite article, the type of a or an x. X is a thing. For the example, a car collided with my foot. This phrase, interpreted as X or car, implicator, not speaker's X or car. The speaker is assumed to follow the maxim of quantity. If he wanted to be more informative, he would have said my car. But it is not his car, so he said a car. A number of other generalized conversational implicatures are commonly communicated on the basis of a scalar value and are consequently known as scalar implicatures. Scalar implicatures occur when an information is communicated by choosing a word which expresses one value from a scalar values, from the most informative and truthful, such as from the highest to the lowest, like all, then most, then many, then some, and then few, or always, and then often, and the last one is sometimes. Here are the examples. In the first example, the speaker creates the implicatures not all, implicature not most, implicature not many. The basis of scalar implicature is that when any form in a scale is asserted, the negative of all forms higher on scale is implicated, like they are sometimes interesting. It implicates that not always, implicate not often. There are scalar implicatures produced by the use of expression we may not immediately consider to be part of any scale, like for A, it's possible that the plane was delayed. For B, Sehun should be selling a duding. For A will interpret it possible, implicature not certain in scale of likelihood. For B will interpret it should, implicature not must in scale of obligation. One noticeable feature of scalar implicature is that when speakers correct themselves in some detail. For example, I got some of this dudding in Sehun's shop. Actually, I think I got most of it there. The speaker implicates not most by saying some and correct with most that implicates not all.
Particularized conversational implicature strongly depends on the context to implicate correctly. For the example, hey, coming to the world party tonight? My parents are visiting. A simply relevant answer for this conversation would be yes or no. Even though Tom's answer looks irrelevant to Rick's question, but the answer means that Tom will be spending that evening with his parents, and time spent with parents is quiet. Consequently, Tom cannot come to the party. A further example in which the speaker doesn't seem to follow the maxim of manner. Where are you going with the dog? To the VET. In the local context of these speakers, the dog is known to recognize the word vet and hate to being there, so Mary produced a more elaborate, spelled out version of her message, implicating that she doesn't want the dog to know the answer to the question just asked. Properties of conversational implicatures. So far, all the implicatures we have considered have been situated within conversation, with the inferences being made by people who hear the utterances and attempt to maintain the assumption of cooperative interaction. Because these implicatures are part of what is communicated and not said, speakers can always deny that they intended to communicate such meanings. Conversational implicatures are deniable. They can be explicitly denied or alternatively reinforced in different ways. For example, you have won $5. However, it is quite easy for a speaker to suspend the implicature only using the expression at least. You've won at least $5, or to cancel the implicature by adding further information, often following expression in fact, you've won $5, in fact you've won 10, or to reinforce the implicature with additional information. You won $5, that's 4 more than 1. Conventional implicature. Conventional implicature are not based on the cooperative principle or maxims. They don't have to occur in conversation and don't depend on special context for their interpretation. For example, Mary suggested black, but I choose white. The fact that Mary suggests black is contrasted via the conventional implicature of but with my choosing white. Other English words such as even and yet also have conventional implicatures. When even is included in any sentence describing an event, there is an implicature of contrary to expectation. For example, even John came to the party. He even helped tidy up afterwards. There are two events reported, John's coming and John's helping, with the conventional implicature of even adding a contrary to expectation interpretation of those events. The conventional implicature of yet is that the present situation is expected to be different or perhaps the opposite at a later time. For example, Dennis isn't here yet. Note B is true. The speaker produces an implicature that she expects the statement Dennis is here to be true later.
And that's bring us to the end. If you have a question or a comment about this presentation, you can share your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you so much.